And Toronto's fire chief says an e-bike battery, that fire is responsible for a blaze. It's left residents of a building on Eglinton near Kill displaced.
In Halton Region, police warning residents about lie being near wooded ravines after some video surfaces.
And a man in his 30s has been seriously injured after an industrial accident at the Eglinton Crosstown LRT construction site near Jane and Eglinton.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Andrew Brennan. Thank you for joining us on Live at 5. And let's get to our top story now. And that involves our fire chief for the city of Toronto talking about an e-bike battery fire that's caused severe damage to a building near Eglinton and Keele, leaving residents of that building displaced now.
Let's go live to CP24, Sija Liu for the latest. Sija.
Bakari, Andrew, about 12 hours after that fire, you can still smell the smoke in the air. But it was this small e-bike that caused massive damage to this low-rise apartment at the corner of Eglinton and Steeles. You can see it burnt to the ground here, resting on the wall. But what is concerning is the extension cable here. Neighbors tell us the fire started on the second floor unit. You can see it is completely burnt out. But neighbors say they were concerned about this unit because the people there would apparently use this extension cord to charge their bike, and they believe that is what caught on fire. And now the second floor unit is pretty much done for. This fire came in around 5:30 this morning. Crews rushed here and people had to be evacuated. That unit where the fire started is completely burnt out, but a lot of damage, especially on the second floor units. Many people had to be evacuated. There is a ton of damage. We spoke to some restoration crews on site who says that it will take at least 8 days or so just to get this place dry again, safe again for people to begin coming back inside. And then the repair work when it comes to the cosmetics will take about 3 weeks or so. 2 people were injured in this fire. 2 women in their 50s were taken to the hospital. Fortunately, their injuries are just minor. A TTC bus is outside sheltering any residents who aren't able to find a home right now. We spoke to some of the residents who were evacuated along with a fire official. Here's what they had to say.
Somebody had a electrical bike in their apartment, and I think the battery blew up. Anyway, the second floor is a mess. The smoke is all through the building. A lot of us still can't get into our apartments.
We have some heavy smoke damage on the second floor. Most smoke conditions on the other floors have been cleared. We're going to assess the water and the smoke conditions on the second floor. The unit of origin all has been completely burnt out. All the contents have been burnt out.
There is no clear timeline on when people will be able to return to their homes. Some people this afternoon still going in and out to try to retrieve whatever they can. But fire officials are warning about the dangers of e-bikes. As you can see, just a small bike causing massive damage. They say e-bikes burn hot, they burn fast. And Phil and Andrew, in the next half hour, Fire Chief Jim Jessup will be joining us on location here to talk more about the dangers of e-bikes. I'll send it back to you.
I appreciate having to hear from him later on today, Sija, and we thank you for bringing that conversation in advance.
A man in his 30s was taken to hospital. This is after an industrial accident at the Eglinton Crosstown LRT construction site. This is near Jane and Eglinton.
And not far from our last story, Chopper 24 over the scene of this incident earlier on today. We're told by the Toronto Fire Department that 2 construction workers had their vehicles collide at the site around 10 a.m. The worker, at least the one we're talking about here, is suffering serious injuries. An investigation is underway both by Metrolinx and also the Ministry of Labour. All right, it was one of our headlines, a big story now. Halton police are issuing a warning right now for a recent residential break-and-enter spike. This happening around homes that are beside green spaces or trail networks.
Investigators say that suspects who try to blend into the neighborhood, they've been focusing on houses that back onto or are in close proximity to wooded areas, ravines, and paths. So police say entry, it's often gained by smashing rear doors or windows, and they believe that organized crime groups are responsible. Patrols have been increased in affected neighborhoods.
It's predominantly during the day. It's a crime of opportunity. They're looking for homes that appear vacant, unoccupied at the time. So some of the tips we gave to residents are leaving lights on, leaving music on, making sure your home appears cared for. You know, your driveway walkways are shoveled. If you're going to be away for a long time, we don't want that snow piling up and giving the appearance that nobody's home. Let your neighbors know if you're not going to be home. Make sure all your locks and gates are secured and your doors are secured. You know, if you can put some shatter-resistant film on your windows and doors, that's a huge plus.
Now, police do say that security videos and detailed descriptions like clothing, vehicles, or license plate information about these suspects will be particularly valuable if people want them to be caught.
Well, 21 suspects are facing a combined 175 charges in a Hamilton police investigation. This is dubbed Project Soames.
And this project beginning in August, police say they identified then suspects in a series of thefts at several Shoppers locations in Hamilton. The investigation found that the suspects were part of a larger network involved in retail thefts and trafficking of stolen property, not just here in Ontario, but Quebec and BC too. The property, we're told, was sold to a Mississauga man who then resold it at a liquidation warehouse in Brampton. Earlier this week, police generally executing 16 search warrants. They recovered a significant amount of the stolen goods, with the value more than $1 million, plus 6 vehicles recovered too.
Organized retail theft is not a victimless crime. It extends well beyond the businesses directly targeted. When retailers experience repeated losses of this scale, the effects are felt throughout the community, including through increased prices and reduced product availability. To the businesses, employees affected, we recognize the challenges you have faced, and we want you to know that your concerns have been heard.
By sharing intelligence, resources, we were able to dismantle a highly organized criminal network operating across 3 provinces. Through the course of this investigation, officers identified the region of Peel as a critical link in the trafficking network, with stolen goods being moved into the region and directly impacting local communities and business.
Organized retail crime is at unprecedented levels in Canada. The level of collaboration demonstrated by these police services here has been outstanding and clearly highlights the urgent need for a dedicated, organized retail crime task force in the province of Ontario. Organized retail crime has a significant financial cost in the billions of dollars annually for Canadian retailers.
Hamilton police say that the majority of the suspects were already on release orders or they had outstanding warrants, and 3 of them were youth, the youngest being 15.
Prosecutors, meantime, have withdrawn a second-degree murder charge against Tim Rees. This comes weeks after Ontario's top court quashed his conviction in the 1989 killing of Darla Thoreau. Now, prosecutors say it's no longer in the public's interest to try the case. Rees had been granted a new trial after it was revealed police did not disclose a recording of a conversation with the landlord of the building Darla lived in. The court said her landlord denied killing her, but did make some statements suggesting prior sexual contact with the young girl.
Well, the province has announced an inquest into the deaths of 5 men at the Collins Bay Prison in Kingston.
Coroner's office says these victims died between 2018 and 2022 while in custody. Inquests into their deaths are mandatory under the Coroner's Act. The process is expected to try to shine light on the conditions and procedures within the federal prison system. The inquest is set to get underway January 26th.
Well, jury deliberations are underway for the man accused of second-degree murder. This is in the fatal shooting of Carolina Hubner-Macarat, in Leslieville. It was more than 2 years ago.
And the mother of 2 killed on a July day by a stray bullet as a fight had broken out down the street near the South River Community Health Center, or I should say the Riverdale Community Health Center. Damien Hudson has pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder. It has been agreed upon by both sides in court that Hudson fired the shot that killed Hubner-Macarat. The defense, though, is arguing it was in self-defense during a fight with 2 other men. The Crown is rejecting that argument, saying that Hudson's conduct was dangerous and reckless, and he only cared about his drug dealing. The jury deliberations have begun as of this afternoon.
Well, it's 5:10, 7 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And when we come back, we'll look into a new report that looks at about a third of Ontarians do not plan to donate to food banks this year, as food banks are dealing with increased historic pressure and unprecedented need. We'll take a look next on Live at 5.
Well, as food banks face increased pressure to meet unprecedented need, a new report finds that almost a third of Ontarians do not plan to donate this year.
Yeah, this research coming from Nextdoor Canada, commissioned by them for Angus Reid, who had conducted it, showing 20% of Canadians in all say they're struggling right now to afford groceries. Almost 4 in 10 report knowing someone else who's struggling. Nearly 2.2 million Canadians are expected to rely on food banks just this month. We spoke with the Daily Bread's CEO, Neil Hetherington, about the need. He's calling once again for all levels of government to do more to support housing and food insecurity.
It's absolutely understandable, and that's why demand at the food bank has risen as much as it has. We are seeing now across the country about 1 in 4 Canadians who are food insecure. About 25% of the population of Canada is food insecure, and we're seeing that on the ground at food banks all across the country. And it's understandable that when you are feeding 1 in 10 Torontonians, as the Daily Bread is, that the folks might not be able to donate either food or funds.
Hetherington says that those who cannot afford to donate money can volunteer their time to support the Daily Bread.
And with exactly a week to go until Christmas, wait, hold on, really? Oh man, I have so much work to do, and so many else out there as well. But let's not forget that we are supposed to be charitable this time of year, and more charities are hoping that you'll keep them in mind for some last-minute donations.
The Salvation Army is among those charities hoping for a last-minute boost in financial help. The charity says that it's far behind in the annual kettle campaign. In fact, this year, compared to this time last year, donations are down $800,000.
We are seeing people that have never come to our food banks, never come for help for Christmas assistance, never come for any of the transitional housing, the rent assistance programs. We have seen people that have never been in need before come to us, and they're dual income families. They're not solely those experiencing homelessness like a lot of people think.
Now, one recent reports from StatsCan survey that suggested that Manitoba is getting at least the crown this year as being the most generous province. We could all maybe try to be more like Manitobans.
A new survey from Rentals.ca is highlighting the ongoing challenges in the country's rental market.
Yeah, more than 6 in 10 rental respondents say they're at least 30% of their income is going on rent right now. Nearly 2/3 experiencing rent increases since the summer. So here in Toronto, 70% of renters are spending over 1/3 of their income on rent. That's the sweet spot that economists look at. Now, across the country, those between 25 and 54 reporting significant strains, while 43 and 37% respectively are spending more than half their net income just on rent.
Prime Minister Mark Carney and Premier Doug Ford, they've inked a deal to reduce regulatory burdens to get major projects done faster.
Now, the two leaders meeting in Ottawa today ahead of the ceremony. Now, one of the major reasons for the announcement today was to kickstart construction on roads to access the mineral-rich Ring of Fire project in Northern Ontario. But that's not the only project being fast-tracked. Ottawa's reportedly agreed to eliminate any duplicative work on its impact assessments, as well on other projects.
Today, Canada and Ontario are signing a cooperation agreement on environmental and impact assessment. This agreement will speed up project approval timelines by introducing a new one project, one review approach. And under the agreement, Canada and Ontario will have a streamlined and flexible assessment process that will make approvals more efficient, delivering major projects faster while maintaining both federal and provincial standards. By working together, we will work with the same information, we will have the same timelines, and we will respect each other's jurisdictions.
Today's announcement is transformational. Projects that required overlapping provincial and federal review will now have a one project, one process, and this last one is so important. A one decision framework bringing certainty to investors and project proponents. It's time for Canada to build big things again, and nowhere will the impact of this deal will be felt more immediately than in the development of the Ring of Fire.
Under today's deal, the road assessment review for the Ring of Fire, that should be done by June of 2026.
And speaking of 2026, the U.S. has laid out demands to Canada before the review next year of the trade agreement between us and the U.S. and Mexico can finally get underway. U.S.
Trade Representative Jamieson Greer told Congress he wants to see Canada make several policy changes, including Canadian rules regarding dairy products, alcohol, and digital services. The U.S. was incensed about Ontario's ban on American alcohol at the height of the tariff wars. Both the PM and Premier Ford addressed the issue during their Ottawa meeting today.
We've been clear about our approach to supply management. We continue to stand by that. We'll continue to protect supply management. And we continue to see tremendous benefits, first and foremost for Canada, but very much for the United States, of pooling resources where possible in the auto sector, in the steel sector, in the aluminum sector, in the lumber, for forest products. And we will enter those discussions on the review of CUSMA in that spirit. The President and I had a long conversation with President Sheinbaum about this a little under 2 weeks ago, which set out the broad parameters for the review of CUSMA.
Well, regarding trade, obviously, I have full confidence in the Prime Minister and his negotiating with President Trump. As for alcohol, we've seen wine sales go up 76%. They're having a record year. The grape growers are having a record year. Small, large wineries are having a record year. Distilleries are. And when the Prime Minister and President Trump come up with a great deal for both countries, we'd be more than happy to bring in some maybe Kentucky bourbon.
So the U.S. has already listed a grievance list about its trade with Mexico as they look to relate to supply chains, energy policies, and labor and environmental laws.
Well, MP Michael Ma joined CP24 Breakfast today to discuss his recent defection from the Conservative Party to the Liberals.
And also talking about the timeline. Ma, as we both know, is the representative for Markham Unionville, and he's come under some criticism for his crossing of the floor, including from some constituents. Now, he was photographed with the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, at the Conservatives' Christmas party, which was, by the way, the night before he announced he was defecting to the Liberals. But he said to us today, at the point of the party, he hadn't actually made a decision and is defending his move.
It's about how we best serve the constituents in Markham Unionville. Instead of deepening division of the country, I believe that we are better served when we are with the governing party to be able to help voice our decisions and support the constituents in a much better fashion and helping us to achieve the goal. My principles have not changed.
And Ma's decision to cross the floor puts the Liberals within one seat of a majority government.
All right now 527 degrees outside on this balmy Thursday. You're watching live at 5.
Well, up ahead, we're hearing from Jake and Romy Reiner for the first time since their parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner, were murdered.
Welcome back to CP24. Hundreds of mourners gathering at a funeral in Sydney for a 10-year-old girl killed in the Bondi Beach terror attack.
Matilda, whose parents arrived in Australia from Ukraine, was attending the Hanukkah celebration with her parents, younger sister, and friends when she was shot. And she was rushed to hospital. That's where she was pronounced dead. In honor of Matilda's middle name, B, attendees wore B stickers and brought B-themed toys and balloons. But for the first time since their parents were killed, we're hearing from Jake and Romy Reiner.
Now, prolific director and actor Rob Reiner, as well as his longtime wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, photographer, were found dead from apparent stab wounds in their home on Sunday. Their son, Nick, has been charged with their murders. Now, their two other children have released a statement saying they are feeling unimaginable pain at the loss of their parents, who they also describe as their best friends. They say they're grateful for the outpouring of support they've received and are also asking for respect, privacy, and that speculation to be tempered with compassion and humanity.
And the search for the Brown University shooter is in its 6th day. Police have released a new image of a potential person of interest.
Yeah, they're looking to identify this person on your screen right now. Investigators say that they've been seen on surveillance cameras in close proximity to the first person of interest on the day of the shooting. That person was briefly detained and then later cleared by police. Now, we are hearing that officers are still reviewing security camera footage from the hours before the shooting as well as just after, as they believe the gunman may have been scouting the area before the crime and looking for their getaway. In all, 2 students were killed, 9 others wounded in this attack on the Brown Engineering building on Saturday.
It's 5:24, 7 degrees. This is Live at 5.
And we are live inside Sherway Gardens tonight. Yep, that's a big, shiny, that's a reindeer, isn't it? We're 1 week away from Christmas.
We're just a week away from Christmas. Last-minute shoppers, they are out in full force at malls all across the GTA.
Ah, yes, my people. I appreciate that I'm not the only one who's very late for an important date. But we're at Sherway Gardens right now, and as you can see, there are a lot of people just enjoying their day, getting those things off their list, checking it twice, and grabbing the one final gift, maybe a few more than one final gifts for people like me. And the mall's operating with extended hours, as are most, by the way, throughout the GTHA, operating until 9:30 p.m. until Saturday, and on Sunday open until 8 p.m. And even for the last minute people, you know who I'm talking about, Christmas Eve, 5 p.m., final chance.
And for those heading into the office next week, GO trains are going to be operating on a holiday schedule Monday, but there will be extra service on Christmas Eve to help riders get home earlier.
And I appreciate in advance, it's a Christmas gift for all, Bakari. But Metrolink says on December 24th, there'll be 2 additional trains on the Milton line leaving Union in the afternoon, and 1 trip going on the Richmond Hill line being added too. So on Sunday, schedules are going to be adjusted to match seasonal demand. Regular service coming back for January 5th when kids go back to school and we go back to work. And on Saturday, some GO bus routes will be changed for the holiday season until January 3rd.
All right, the Prince and Princess of Wales, they've released their annual Christmas card.
Prince William and Catherine are pictured with their 3 children, 12-year-old George, 10-year-old Charlotte, and 7-year-old Louis. The photo was taken back in April by photographer Josh Schinner.
It's 5:29, 7 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Toronto's fire chief says that an e-bike battery is responsible for a fire at an apartment unit in the area of Eglinton and Keele. We'll take you there next. Toronto's chief of fire is saying that an e-bike battery is responsible for the blaze that left this damage at Eglinton and Keele.
Halton police are warning residents who live near wooded areas and ravines about a spike in break-and-enters.
A man in his 30s seriously injured after an incident at the Eglinton Crosstown LRT construction site at Jane and Eglinton.
And we're live inside Sherway Gardens tonight. We're 1 week away from Christmas.
This is Live at 5. Hello, I'm Andrew Brennan.
I'm Bakari Savage. Welcome to Live at 5. We have breaking news from Queen's Park. Ontario's Integrity Commission is launching an investigation into David Piccini, the Minister of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development. This is over the Skills Development Fund controversy.
And there's been quite a few reporters at Queen's Park covering this extensively. That includes our own bureau chief, Siobhan Morris, joining us live now with the details. Siobhan, there's been conversations and really even yelling during question period that's been dogging David Piccini for a while now. Why do you think the Integrity Commissioner is saying yes based on what you've heard?
Well, I think it's just the volume of the complaints, and there are these questions around whether, the connections that David Piccini does have to some of the recipients of Skills Development Fund money. And that's really what the Integrity Commissioner is ultimately going into. That's really the basis, the central basis of the complaint that was filed both by the NDP and the Liberal Party. We did hear from the Integrity Commissioner's office that she'll combine those two complaints and investigate them as one, since there is so much overlap. The Integrity Commissioner will also be able to compel evidence, documents, interviews with people right across the ministry and outside as well, to get to the bottom of whether or not David Piccini, in her mind, broke any ethics rules, the rules that govern the way MPPs have to comport themselves doing their business as elected officials.
Siobhan, what can you tell us about the timeline leading up to this announcement?
We don't have a good sense of when exactly we can expect a report, a final decision on whether or not the ethics commissioner believes that David Piccini did break any ethics rules, but you can expect this will take several months to talk to all the involved players, really sort of look at everything that the Integrity Commissioner's office has collected and make a judgment call. So we are probably looking into at least, I would say, the later part of the spring before we get some sort of answer. We do know, that, of course, that the House is in recess until late March, so the government will not be on a daily basis facing heat, those repeated questions about what sort of connections David Piccini did have to some recipients of that money. But this will be definitely, now we know, a problem, a continued controversy that will dog the provincial government into the new year.
Last question, Siobhan. You just mentioned March being when the very long winter break is ending. Do you think that there's questions right now, is a better way to put it, that David Piccini will still be in cabinet come March?
I mean, the Premier has said emphatically, yes, he will. He doesn't see any need to move him out of that position. That was the answer the last time that question was explicitly put to him about a week ago, and he hasn't showed no signs that that answer is going to change. Whether or not, knowing that his minister is under this bigger magnifying glass now, it remains to be seen whether or not that could change things. But everything we've heard so far from Premier Doug Ford is that he has confidence in David Piccini as his Minister of Labour.
Okay, reporting live, CTV News, Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris. Thank you.
Thanks, Siobhan. All right, now we move to the old city of York. Toronto's fire chief says that it was an e-bike battery which caught fire and then set an apartment unit ablaze near Eglinton and Keele, leaving the people of the building displaced.
Let's go live to CP24. Sija, are people going to be able to go back home tonight?
No, they won't be able to, especially not those living on the second floor. That is where I am standing right now, where the fire started. It happened at that unit down the hall. There was an e-bike on the ground that caught fire. And take a look at the walls here. These walls used to be white, but they are covered in the remnants of smoke, showing you the damage that was done from that e-bike battery. And here to talk more about the fire and the dangers of e-bikes that aren't charged properly, I'm joined by Toronto Fire Chief Jim Jessup. And sir, thanks so much for your time today. We're standing inside the second floor of this building. You can smell the smoke, you can see the damage. Talk about this fire and what took place here.
Well, early this morning, Toronto Fire Service responded to the report of a fire here at 2701 Eglinton Avenue West. They were met with heavy heat, flame and smoke, as you can see. The crews did an outstanding job. They fought their way down through very tough conditions, conducted their primary search. They were able to remove a number of occupants. 2 were transported to hospital with smoke inhalation, non-life-threatening injuries, and then they were able to fully extinguish the fire. But as you can see, the damage that was done from the fire is significant. A number of tenants are displaced, and a temporary shelter has been arranged for them. And again, just an outstanding job by my staff. This could have been a lot worse. had there been multiple people in the hallway, but our crews, as usual, did a fantastic job.
Fortunately, those two women, just those two women with minor injuries. And that one unit in the corner, it is completely gutted right now from that fire. And you believe it started with an e-bike. How did that happen?
Yeah, so what was reported to us is it was witnessed. So one of the occupants of the room has told us that they witnessed the e-bike go into thermal runaway, so the battery started to smoke. And with these types of fires, they will flash over and go into thermal runaway in less than 90 seconds, and the entire room becomes engulfed in flames. And that is exactly what happened here. The e-bike failed, the thermal lithium-ion battery failed, went into thermal runaway, ignited the entire room, and the result you can see is a significant damage down the hallway, but the unit itself is completely gutted from fire.
Is there any way that this could have been prevented? Any safe ways of charging your battery, your e-bike?
Well, one of the things that Toronto Fire Service and Toronto City Council have been very vocal about the last number of months is the dangers of unregulated and uncertified batteries. We've had an over 160% increase in the number of fires in the City of Toronto since 2022 as a result of lithium-ion battery fires. And primarily, it's those batteries that are aftermarket, not certified, not regulated, and used either damaged or overcharged, or they're altered. So it is a significant public safety risk in the city. That is why Toronto City Council has requested both the federal and the provincial governments to work with us on trying to come up with different options and alternatives to mitigate the ever-growing public safety risk these batteries are posing in the country's largest city.
Can you just talk about how dangerous this fire was? We can just see the walls here. It's not every day you see these white walls turn black from the smoke.
No, this was a significant fire. As I said, the crews did an admirable job getting it out as quickly as possible. Our communications team, as soon as they knew what they were dealing with, added additional resources immediately. But that is the challenge with these fires these days. A typical fire in the 1960s, a room would have reached flashover in 20 minutes. Into the early 2000s with modern furnishings, that went down to about 5 minutes. When lithium-ion batteries go into thermal runaway, we will have flashover in less than 90 seconds. And that is exactly what happened here today. And we're just very fortunate that there were no serious injuries or fatalities.
Absolutely. Great work by the fire crews here. Thanks so much, Chief, for your time today. And like he mentioned, the second floor has been completely evacuated. People aren't able to return to their homes at this time. But the situation could have been a lot worse. 2 women were injured. Fortunately, their injuries are minor. And we were speaking to the restoration teams earlier. They mentioned just the cleanup efforts, making sure this place is dry, getting the smoke off the walls. They said that would take roughly 8 days or so. And then when it comes to the more cosmetic cleanups, like painting the walls, that's around 3 weeks or so. So still a long road to recovery for this building, Bakari and Andrew. But fortunately, no one died in this fire, and crews were able to put it out.
Yeah, very important silver lining there. That's Sija Liu in the old city of York talking with the fire chief about e-bike batteries. You know, they're still illegal to operate in the city of Toronto under our bylaws. We'll have to see. That may change sometime, but for now, more news, Bakari.
Yeah. A man in his 30s was taken to hospital after an industrial accident. This was at the Eglinton Crosstown LRT construction site near Jane and Eglinton.
And not far, actually, where Sija is right now. But CP24 was not far away not long ago. Toronto Fire telling us that the 2 construction vehicles collided at the site in the morning. Now, the worker suffered serious injuries, we're told. There's 2 investigations underway, one by Metrolinx and the Ministry of Labour investigating 2.
Halton police are out with a warning. This is after a recent spike in residential break-and-enters targeting homes near green spaces and trail systems.
Now, so using wooded areas, suspects, according to police, to blend into the neighborhood and into foliage to sneak away. And they've been focusing, police say, on houses backing into or close proximity to wooded areas, ravines, pathways. Police say that entry is often gained by smashing the rear doors or windows from those wooded areas. And organized crime, police say, is probably responsible. Patrols have been increased in affected neighborhoods.
We've got extra investigative resources available. We're canvassing. We're trying to get as much CCT and surveillance footage as we can. We're also urging residents, if you see anything suspicious in your neighborhood, to give us a call. You see people with backpacks kind of lurking around a green space, look like they're checking things out, cars you don't notice. You know, people know their neighborhoods. They know what cars, you know, are shouldn't be there maybe, or maybe look suspicious. Looks like someone's driving around looking for homes that might not have residents in it. You know, give us a call. You never know, you know, what could help us.
Well, police say that security video and detailed descriptions such as clothing, vehicles, or license plate information, it is particularly valuable to help investigators catch the suspects.
21 suspects, meantime, are facing a combined 175 charges in a Hamilton police investigation dubbed Project Somme.
It started in August. That's when police identified suspects in a series of thefts at several Shoppers Drug Mart locations in Hamilton. The investigation found that the suspects were part of a larger network involved in large-scale retail thefts and trafficking of stolen property in Ontario, Quebec, and BC. The property was sold to a Mississauga man who then resold it at a liquidation warehouse in Brampton. On Tuesday, police executed 16 search warrants. They recovered a significant amount of stolen goods worth more than $1 million, as well as 6 vehicles.
It was a sophisticated distribution network, and Peel Region was served as a major hub of its activities. These criminal networks do not respect local, provincial, or national borders. They operate across jurisdictions, exploit gaps between agencies, and move stolen goods quickly and strategically.
Organized retail theft is not a victimless crime. It extends well beyond the businesses directly targeted. When retailers experience repeated losses of this scale, the effects are felt throughout the community, including through increased prices and reduced product availability. To the businesses, employees affected, we recognize the challenges you have faced, and we want you to know that your concerns have been heard.
It affects the safety in our stores and our communities. Profits from these sophisticated criminal organizations are often used to fund other, much more violent criminal activity in our communities. We stand with police services in their critical work on organized retail crime and their efforts to reduce the impact on our communities, since the safety issues organized retail crime create and the costs associated with battling these organized criminal organizations affect all of us.
Now, Hamilton police say the majority of suspects were already out on release orders or had outstanding warrants. 3 of the arrested, we're told, are teenagers, the youngest being just 15.
Well, jury deliberations are underway for the man accused of a second-degree murder. This is in the fatal shooting of Carolina Hubner-Macaret in Leslieville more than 2 years ago.
The mother of 2 was killed by a stray bullet after a fight broke out down the street from where she was. Near the South Riverdale Community Health Center, Damian Hudson has pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder. Now, both his defense attorneys and the Crown agree that Hudson fired the shot that killed Hubner-Macaret. The defense, though, is arguing it was in self-defense during an altercation with 2 other men. The Crown rejects that argument, saying that Hudson was knowingly dangerous and recklessly abandoned as he only cared about his drug dealing. The jury deliberations have begun as of today.
It's 5:45, 7 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, the MP who crossed the floor from the Conservatives to Liberals explains to CP24 why he did it.
Instead of deepening division of the country, I believe that
Our Prime Minister Mark Carney and Premier Doug Ford have inked a deal to reduce regulatory burdens to get major projects done faster.
The 2 leaders meeting today in Ottawa ahead of a ceremony, with one of the major reasons for the announcement today to attempt to kickstart as soon as possible construction on the mineral-rich Ring of Fire project's access road in North Ontario. Now, that's not the only fast-track project for Ontario. Ottawa has reportedly agreed as well to eliminate any duplicative work with its impact assessments on other large projects.
One study shows that regulatory requirements in Canada have increased by 40% over the course of the past 2 decades, suppressing business investment growth by nearly 10%. We need to turn that around. We need to turn that around to create high-paying jobs today and better futures for our kids tomorrow.
Our agreement is the next step in our government's extensive work and partnerships with First Nations and Northern communities to unlock Ontario's vast critical mineral reserve in the Ring of Fire, which will add $22 billion to our economy and create 70,000 new good-paying jobs.
And under today's deal, the road assessment review for the Ring of Fire would be done by June of 2026.
MP Michael Ma joining CP24 today to discuss his recent defection from the Conservatives to the Liberals.
And Ma, who represents Markham Unionville, has come under criticism from some for crossing the floor, including constituents. He was photographed with Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre at the Tories' Christmas party the night before he joined the Liberals, but says he had not made a decision at that point. Ma is defending his move.
I have now better access to ministers and the Prime Minister to deliver those voices on behalf of the Markham Unionville. I think this is a better approach than creating very negative views and not finding solutions.
So with Ma crossing the floor now, the Liberals, which got elected with a majority or a minority government, now need one seat to be a majority government.
Well, south of the border, former NASCAR driver Greg Biffle is among 7 people killed after a business jet crashed. This happened while landing at an airport in North Carolina.
State police telling us that Biffle and members of his immediate family were killed in the crash north of Charlotte. Now, flight records show the Cessna C550 was registered to a company run by Biffle, who earned his private pilot's license in March of this year. Biffle won more than 50 races across NASCAR's 3 circuits. Cause of the crash still unknown.
It's 5:57 degrees. This is Live at 5.
We are live inside Sherway Gardens tonight amongst my people who are doing their last-minute Christmas shopping because we got a week left, guys. Chop, chop. We're a week away from Christmas. I'm really, really excited. And I also need to do some shopping. So conveniently, we put the camera in the right spot, right? The camera, there we go. Okay, yeah, we're at Sherway Gardens, and there's other people there that are like...
The camera's moving.
The camera, because he's very busy. He's got to go buy my presents. He's not actually buying my presents. Mom, if you're listening, I'm not having anyone shop for me. But anyway, Bakari, take it away.
I mean, look, some shoppers are just starting to check things off their list, while others grabbing one final gift. So the mall is operating with extended hours until 9:30. That's going to be through Saturday, then 8 p.m. on Sunday, and it'll be open until 5 on Christmas Eve.
Now, food banks are also dealing with unprecedented demand, and also the needs they're not getting enough from people. And a new report shows that about 1/3 of Ontarians aren't planning to donate this year.
A research from Next Door Canada and Angus Reid. It also shows that 20% of Canadians say they are currently struggling to afford groceries, while 39% report knowing someone struggling. Nearly 2.2 million Canadians are expected to rely on food banks this month. We had a chance to speak with Daily Bread CEO Neil Hetherington about the need, and he's calling on all levels of government to do more to support housing and food insecurity.
Here's the thing. Everybody can advocate. We should not be in a Canada where folks need to rely on food charity. And so my hope is that people will pick up the phone, they'll send an email, they'll write a letter to any elected official of any party, of any level of government, because each have failed on their poverty reduction strategies.
Now, Hetherington does say that if you don't have the money to be able to donate this year, you can volunteer your time to support Daily Bread as well.
It's 5:55, 7 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Environment Canada has released its list of the top 10 weather events of the year. We'll take a look back next.
Spring wildfires have forced more than 32,000 Manitobans to flee their homes. It's among Environment Canada's top 10 weather events of the year.
Yeah, the plight of Manitobans, a centerpiece of what the agency calls the second worst wildfire year on record. The worst was 2 years ago. The agency says a summer storm surge that flooded a northern hamlet of the Northwest Territories also hit the list, as well as heat waves, thunderstorms, memorable snowstorms too. Environment Canada says that 2025 saw drought conditions worsen across much of the country.
Right now it's 5:58, 7 degrees. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
Yeah, we've been talking about weather, and speaking of the weather, Environment Canada has a special weather statement for Toronto. It's advising of rain and rapidly falling temperatures, but does that mean we're getting a white Christmas? Odds are right now probably not, but we're gonna hope, Bakari, right? You're hoping with me, right? That you're supposed to say yes now.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We're hoping that we get a white Christmas, but rain tonight. Thank you very much for joining. CTV News at 6 is up right now.